It's 3 months till the London Olympic Games, where the brightest stars of the professional sporting world will compete. But today was a moment to stop and reflect on a bronze Aussie whose great feats in the amateur ranks back in the 50s inspired his small country to become a giant in the sport of swimming. Murray Rose died yesterday at 73 from leukaemia, and his old mates paused today to cast some light on what made him a legend. Mary Gearan reports.
Rose, Australia.
Before Thorpe, before Phelps, before Spitz, there was Rose.
He was a superstar. He was a legend in Australian swimming. Even in world swimming, Murray Rose ranks as one of the greatest. He's known very much in America. His technique was so good, and of course he was such a gentleman. He was quietly spoken. He was a really wonderful individual.
This was the man who, even as an amateur, would be the benchmark for generations of swimmers to come. It's hard to imagine the impact of this blonde-haired 17-year-old emerging from the waters of Bondi to grab 3 gold medals in the 1956 Games in his own country.
And Rose touches first.
In the 400 metres freestyle, the 1500 metres, and as part of the 4x200 relay.
Oh, it was amazing, of course. He was a national hero at the time. It was unbelievable.
Norman May was an up-and-coming sports broadcaster. He saw Rose, alongside Dawn Fraser, kick-start the golden era of Australian swimming.
Well, certainly as a swimmer, he was a magnificent swimmer. He knew how to win. He always had a plan.
Forbes Carlyle was one of the coaches on the Australian team, but had to get a job as a TV commentator to be granted a seat in the stadium.
Thank goodness that Rose has a look on the Japanese.
He made underwater films of Rose as an example to young swimmers.
I think for a couple of generations we used him as a model. He didn't overuse his legs. In fact, he was a 2 and a 4 beat kicker, which was fairly unusual because at his time people were kicking we went through a period of people kicking their legs very hard. He was a more gentle action with his legs, but a really beautiful and graceful swimmer.
Murray Rose went to train in the US college system, then defended his 400-metre freestyle gold in Rome in 1960.
He wasn't supposed to win. And I can remember the BBC commentary, they said, Rose of all people has hit the front. And what he did in that race, the 400 metres, he swam back to back. In other words, he swam the second half of the race in the same time as the first half. And that was the start of the change of swimming tactics.
In his career, Rose would set 15 world records, making him a household name worldwide. Given his golden boy looks, it was inevitable Hollywood would come to call.
I would like to start a career in acting. I've done some stage work. In fact, I finished up doing Hamlet at SC last year, and which was a wonderful thrill. And now I'd like to get into motion pictures if I can and do something in that sphere.
His fame grew, not just because of his talent, but also his distinctly eccentric diet at the time called vegetarian. Murray Rose became known as the seaweed streak.
Murray, how important to your success do you think this diet has been?
I think it's very important.
Do you have any philosophy on life as an individual?
I think it revolves around this perhaps secret of concentration on one thing. And I think this is the secret to life, if you can live each moment to its fullest.
The next episode in Murray Rose's career is, in retrospect, astounding. He was refused entry for the '64 Olympic trials despite 2 recent world records because a movie contract in the US had prevented a run in the national championships.
Despite the fact that he wasn't allowed to swim in Tokyo in 1964, he never lost contact with the Olympic movement in Australia. I believe he swam even faster after he retired at the age of 40-odd than he did when he was swimming in the Olympic Games, which is an amazing thing.
Rose went on to do corporate and charity work, threw himself into Olympic fundraising efforts and supported the Masters Games.
Shot in the arm for everybody who's participating, and everybody who looks on and says, you know, I could do that. You know, I don't have to be an elite athlete.
He mentored subsequent generations of Australian swimmers and occasionally commented on sporting issues of the day.
Throw away your speed suits, never be seen dead in anything like that.
I think he'd like to be remembered as a guy who really tried his best who didn't complain, who was modest in victory, as a guy who didn't want a fuss made about him, but who just get in and do his job.